Hi, I gather you're thinking about driving when you come to Scotland. Just a couple of questions before you do that. When was the last time you drove a stick? Have you ever driven on the left-hand side of the road? What about single track roads? Do you have any experience of those? And also, are you thinking about planning to visit a distillery? All of these are considerations for you before you decide to sign any papers. That said, I want to give you the benefit of my experience and tell you some of the things that I'm looking at before I set off on a trip. Firstly, route planning. I wouldn't just trust sat-nav blindly. Sometimes it can take you down some pretty unsavoury roads. No matter what your favourite tool is, be that Google Maps, be that Waze, be that Apple Maps, even some of the proprietary sat-navs, they can, on occasion, take you down some roads that really are not suitable for every vehicle. You really want to be thinking about building in a margin to every single tour that you drive. This gives you ability to let the landscape breathe and also just to factor in any possible difficulties that you might come to along the road. In particular, if you're visiting up in the north of Scotland, the Isle of Skye, somewhere like that, let's say, there's every possibility that sheep are going to be on your path. Beautiful to look at, but you know, sometimes if a cattle herd have decided that it's time to go for milking, that could take 20 minutes off of your itinerary. So build yourself in some margins. And the sequence in which you visit things, that's very important too. If I were you, I'd look to try to visit the important things quite early on in the day, front load them if you possibly can. It doesn't always work. So you have to have some kind of local knowledge to make this work at its optimum. For instance, a little bit of local knowledge will tell you that Edinburgh Castle is substantially more busy in the morning than it is in the afternoon. Perhaps it might make sense to go and visit that one in the afternoon rather than the morning. But you're not going to know that ahead of time. And also it can be really important that you have a plan B route in mind. Sometimes you might find, depending on what time of year that you're travelling, that your plan A just doesn't work. And as you go further north in Scotland, you'll find that choices are somewhat limited. Knowing the roads really does make a massive difference. Next, I want you to be thinking about parking and access at the various different places that you want to visit. Particularly in the cities, parking can be really quite difficult. Be aware that if you were planning to visit, for instance, Edinburgh Castle, there is no parking anywhere remotely close to the castle. I often find that it's a better idea just to walk in the city of Edinburgh. On occasion I'm travelling with someone who for whatever reason really has to use a vehicle within the city, and if that's the case then I'll find someone to partner with, either someone else to guide or someone to drive me while I frictionlessly deal with the guiding. It's important that you know how to get to the closest place that you can possibly drop off a client. You may well find that in the big city, Edinburgh, Glasgow, there are places where only buses are allowed to travel and vehicles just simply cannot take these roads. And if you do, then you're going to end up with a fine. How you deal with this through your hire company, that could make things complicated for you going ahead. When you're choosing a parking spot, think about your exit just as much as your entrance. It's far more likely that you're going to be rushed on your way out of a place than on your way in. And so think about your exit strategy first. And if your first choice of parking space is not available for whatever reason, have a second one just slotted away just in case. You also want to be thinking about timing the human side as well as timing your runs. You need to be thinking about the body clocks of your passengers. Sometimes they've just arrived off a flight, they may be tired. You want to make sure that energy levels are going to be consistently managed through the day. People always move slower than the itinerary suggests. I'm always looking at my guests and judging their energy levels before deciding how much more to bite off of the day. If you've got a difficult thing to manage, say a ferry crossing maybe, or perhaps a boat ride, something like that, I would front load that onto the day. It makes sense to front load complexity as much as you possibly can and leave the afternoon to breathe. You really don't want to be rushing the highlights. Now let's take a look at the vehicle that you're going to use and how comfortable that's going to be. I have a reasonably large vehicle. I can sit 7 adults in some comfort, but it can become somewhat crowded once we start adding luggage. I usually prefer to leave at least one of the seats free just in case. If you're going to be spending a significant amount of time in a vehicle, you need to make certain that everyone is going to have enough space that they don't get on each other's nerves. And particularly up in the north of Scotland, it's very important that you watch your fuel levels, not just your diesel in the case of this vehicle, but also your AdBlue, because it's not always universally available in every filling station. And this is particularly true if you've booked yourself an electric vehicle. Make sure that you've got charging points. And where you're transferring clients onto a train or a ferry or something like that, you need to make sure that you're keeping the transition smooth. Make it feel as if there's no sense of urgency when they get to a place. Now let's look at how we're best going to manage risks, because believe you me, being in the military for as long as I was, I can tell you no plan survives first contact. It's very important that even for your key places that you're planning to visit, that you have some kind of backup available just in case that doesn't work out when things do go wrong. For instance, if you have a flat tyre or something like that, it's very important that your passengers don't feel alarmed by what's going on. It does happen. I've had to deal with flat tyres on the Isle of Skye before, and knowing what to do, knowing how to change that, that's very, very important, because you don't want to be waiting for a recovery vehicle to come and pull you out of a place when it could take 2.5 hours. That's a big chunk out of your day. Know where the equipment is, know how to use it, make sure that it's good to go. And something that I've learned from working with some great professionals is try to look yourself completely unflustered no matter what's going on. The more relaxed you are, the more relaxed your clients will be. So if you want to maintain a professional mindset, you need to be thinking about managing outcomes, not just route. In the army we were told, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. You really need to make sure that your preparation is all sorted before you even put your tyres to the tarmac. And really, the reality of it for a guide is that if you do your work really well, it goes unnoticed. If clients notice that I'm doing a good job, I'm not doing as good a job as I think I am. So listen, by all means, take a driving trip in Scotland. It's not the worst thing in the world, but plan ahead for it, please. And remember, no matter what you choose, I'm yours.